The series begins in Korea, specifically at Sunjin High School, where we see the third-year students leaving their exam rooms. We learn that the test they just took was a mock exam meant to prepare them for their finals, which are crucial for entering their dream universities. The students come out happy, feeling confident. Among them is a boy named Kim, who is cheerful and hopes the real exams will be just as easy. Kim goes over to his close friend Chul to check on him and ask how he did, but he finds Chul completely uninterested in the exam. Instead, Chul is glued to his phone, watching the news. Curious, Kim asks what he's looking at. Chul replies that he's following the latest updates about mysterious spherical objects that have appeared in the sky. Chul begins recalling the first day he saw those objects about a year ago. He remembers leaving his house for school as usual, but when he reached the street, he found everyone standing still, frozen in place and staring fearfully at the sky. When Chul looked up, he was shocked to see strange floating spheres scattered all across the sky, so many of them that it was overwhelming. They looked unnatural, and the strangest part was that they didn't move at all. They just hovered motionless. Unfortunately, these spheres weren't limited to Korea. They appeared all over the world. Naturally, chaos broke out globally as scientists and governments tried to understand what these objects were, where they came from, and most importantly, whether they posed any danger to humanity. Surprisingly, no scientific organization could identify what these objects were. When governments tried to destroy them using fighter jets, the attacks had no effect. On the contrary, the spheres replicated themselves, multiplying even more. Realizing they were powerless, world governments decided to stop attacking or touching the objects until they could understand their nature and find a solution. Over time, people resumed their normal lives, pretending nothing had changed. Since the spheres hadn't caused any harm, they simply floated silently in the sky. Society gradually got used to living with them. Returning to the present, we see that Chul has become one of the most obsessed people with the phenomenon. He constantly follows news reports and theories about the spheres. Kim advises him to stop thinking about it so much and focus on his life, especially with finals approaching. As the two leave school and head home, they notice their classmate Han, one of the smartest and most outstanding students in school. Sadly, Han is a loner with no friends. Chul tries to talk to him and ask how he did on the exam, but Han ignores him completely, boards a bus, and leaves without saying a word. Chul feels hurt and disappointed, but walks home with Kim. The next day, the Korean military is shocked when one of the sky spheres falls into a remote area. A battalion is immediately dispatched to secure the site, as no one knows what these objects are or whether they're dangerous. When the soldiers arrive, they realize that this sphere is unstable, unlike the others still in the sky. It emits strange lights, and something inside it seems to be moving. The soldiers grow nervous and wait for specialists to arrive and study it, but the battalion's commander, dismissing the danger, decides not to wait. He underestimates the threat, thinking it's just a harmless metal ball. He pulls out his gun and starts shooting at the object to see what happens. Nothing. It remains completely unaffected. Frustrated, the commander orders a rocket launcher brought to him. When it arrives, he personally fires a missile at the sphere. Smoke fills the area, blinding everyone. Then suddenly the sphere begins to transform, revealing its true form, and from that moment everything in the world changes forever. 4 weeks later, we return to Sunjin High School. Chul, Kim, and their classmates are joking and laughing together in class when their teacher, Ms. Park, walks in. She's well loved by all the students, kind, caring, and supportive, almost like an older sister to them. She not only helps them academically, but also guides them personally. Ms. Park starts distributing the mock exam results and announces that the top student is Han, who scored the highest in every subject. She continues handing out papers until she reaches the two lowest scorers in the class, Gal and Rak, two close friends. Gal, in particular, is known as the biggest bully in class. Everyone fears him. As Gal takes his paper from Ms. Park and walks back to his seat, he kicks Han's bag out of the way, throwing it aside. We learn that Gal has always bullied Han for no reason, and Han has always stayed silent, never fighting back, something Gal constantly takes advantage of. This time, however, Miss Park witnesses everything. Upset, she scolds Gal for what he did and decides to hold him accountable so he won't repeat it. But before she can do anything, the principal summons her and all the teachers to an urgent meeting. Worried, Miss Park quickly heads to the conference room with her colleagues to find out what's happening. Not long after, she returns to the students once again. Her face looks pale and frightened. Ms. Park asks the students to calm down and pay close attention because she has an important announcement. She tells them that the final exams, the ones that would determine their university admissions, have been officially canceled. The entire class is stunned. No one understands what's going on. They begin to panic, asking how they're supposed to enter university if there are no final exams. The classroom turns into chaos as they beg Ms. Park to explain what's happening. To answer their questions, Ms. Park plays a live broadcast of the Minister of Defense, who appears on screen to make a national announcement. The final exams for all third-year students are canceled because starting from this moment, all senior high school students will be recruited as reserve soldiers in the military. The minister continues, explaining that schools will remain open, classes will go on as usual, but military training will now become the new path for university admission. Students will earn points through their military performance, and those with the highest scores will gain entry into the best universities. In other words, the better a student performs in military training, the higher their rank and the better their university placement. The students sit in disbelief, unable to process what they've just heard. Some are excited by the news, imagining themselves as soldiers. Others are terrified. Before leaving, Ms. Park hands out military consent forms and tells them that their parents must sign to approve their enlistment. She then leaves the class, visibly worried about what lies ahead for her students. The students remain in class discussing everything that's happened. While they're talking, Gal goes over to Han and, as usual, starts mocking and bullying him. But this time, Gal goes too far. He hits Han. That's the breaking point. Han finally loses control and punches Gal back, attacking him furiously. The two of them start a violent fight until their classmates step in to pull them apart. Just then, everyone hears a commotion in the school courtyard. They rush to the window to see what's happening and are shocked to find military trucks arriving, filled with soldiers. The troops start setting up equipment across the school grounds, preparing it for military training. Fear and anxiety spread among all the students, without exception. Later that day, Chul meets up with Han to check on him after the fight. Chul tries to talk to him kindly, suggesting that he should open up to their classmates instead of isolating himself all the time. But Han dismisses him coldly, saying that everyone in their class is stupid and that he has no interest in being friends with any of them. Realizing there's no point arguing, Chul gives up and leaves him alone. That night, all the students return home and tell their parents what happened at school. Their parents sign the consent forms, and from that moment, the third-year students officially become Army reservists. The next day, they return to school as usual, only to find that their school has been transformed into a military base. The sight of soldiers, weapons, and training equipment amazes them. Despite their nerves, many feel thrilled by the new environment. Soon after, Ms. Park enters the classroom accompanied by a military officer, a lieutenant. The officer introduces himself as Lieutenant Lee, the commander in charge of their military training program. He explains that he'll be overseeing their daily training sessions after school. Lee appoints several students to assist with administrative tasks. He chooses the class president, Yu, to be his assistant and student liaison, responsible for organizing the others. He also picks Chul as the record keeper, in charge of documents and attendance. After giving instructions, Lee introduces his second-in-command, Lieutenant Ben, who will be responsible whenever Lee is away. Lee stresses that everyone must obey Ben's orders as they would his own. Then, Lee gives the students 30 minutes to prepare before training begins. Soon, all the students gather in the schoolyard, and the first day of military training begins. From the start, Lee is tough on them, making them run, exercise, and perform grueling drills. None of them are used to such exhaustion. They quickly grow weak and sore. When the training ends, they can barely walk back to their dorm rooms, especially the girls, who find the physical strain overwhelming. At night, some of the boys stay up chatting. Gal plays a video on his phone, and the others gather around to watch and laugh. The only one not joining is Han, who sits apart, trying to study. But the noise makes it impossible for him to concentrate, so he decides to go outside to study quietly. Before he can leave, Lieutenant Lee catches him and forbids him from going out at night. Han complains, saying he can't focus because Gal is playing videos loudly. Lee walks over, confiscates Gal's phone, and deducts 3 points from his record. Then he leaves. Enraged, Gal confronts Han, about to hit him again, but Lee suddenly returns. He stops them and says such behavior won't be tolerated in his base. As punishment, he orders both of them to spend the night carrying equipment and food supplies. They have no choice but to obey. As they work through the night, tensions rise again, and another fight breaks out between them. Coincidentally, Chul is nearby and sees them arguing. He rushes over to separate them, but in that very moment, a glowing spherical object suddenly falls from the sky, landing right beside them. Without warning, the sphere transforms into a terrifying creature, glowing violet, and it attacks Han, swallowing him whole before their eyes. Chul and Gal freeze in shock, unable to move. The creature then turns toward Chul, about to attack, but at the last second, Lieutenant Lee appears and saves him. The creature reverts back into its orb form and disappears. Chul and Gal survive by sheer miracle, but they're traumatized, having just watched their classmate die before their eyes. Later, Lieutenant Lee reports the incident to Ms. Park, informing her of Han's death. The moment Ms. Park hears the news, she completely breaks down. She can't control her emotions. Han was like a younger brother to her. Lieutenant Lee tries to calm her down, telling her that the most important thing now is to make sure no student finds out what happened, so that fear doesn't spread among them. Sadly, Ms. Park agrees. She goes to talk to Chul and Gal, who are still in deep shock, pale and trembling. She does her best to comfort them and ease their trauma. Then she asks both of them to keep Han's death a secret, not to mention his name or say anything about the alien creatures so that their classmates don't fall into panic and fear. She instructs them that if anyone asks about Han, they should simply say he got sick suddenly and had to go home, and that he won't be joining training anymore. Chul and Gal return to class, trying to act normal so no one suspects anything. When their classmates ask about Han, they give the same story, that he wasn't feeling well and had to go home. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Lee sits alone in his office, lost in thought, replaying his memories from a month ago. We learn that he was part of the military battalion that had encountered one of the spheres on the ground, the same incident when a reckless commander ordered a rocket strike on it. After the commander fired the missile, the sphere transformed, releasing a massive swarm of alien creatures. The creatures brutally attacked the entire battalion, slaughtering every soldier one by one until only Lee survived. He witnessed all his comrades dying before his eyes, completely helpless. From that day, Lee vowed to dedicate himself fully to training the young students so that what happened to his unit would never happen to them. The next day, Lee begins training the students in handling weapons and shooting practice. Day after day, he pushes them harder than before, determined to improve their skills quickly and prepare them for a possible alien confrontation. But the students don't know any of this. They just see him as a cold, emotionless officer, unaware of the real danger outside. Then one day, Lee gathers all the students in the classroom for a weapon assembly test. He sets a timer on his watch and tells them that each person has exactly 1 minute to disassemble and reassemble their rifle. The test begins and the students work fast. Everyone succeeds except one girl, who takes much longer than the others. When she fails to finish within the time limit, Lee orders her to try again. She tries repeatedly but keeps failing. Lee tells her she isn't leaving the classroom until she can complete the task in the required time, even if it takes all day. The girl keeps trying, failing again and again, while the rest of the class grows irritated, forced to wait with her. Lee uses this moment to teach them an important lesson. No one fights alone on the battlefield. They are a team, and if one person fails, everyone suffers the consequences. The next day, Lee takes the students to a shooting range for live fire training. Ms. Park joins them on the trip. As they travel, the students notice how empty the streets are. No people, no cars. They've been inside the school for so long that they have no idea what's happening outside, but they ignore it and don't sense any danger. They arrive at the range, receive live ammunition, and begin practicing. During training, it becomes clear that Nara, one of the girls, is an excellent shooter, the best among them. She's also Chul's close friend, and he secretly has feelings for her but lacks the courage to confess. After the session, Lee leads them back toward the school. On the way, he notices traces of gunfire and blood on the road. His instincts tell him something is wrong, but he doesn't want to alarm the students. He tells them to rest while he and his assistant, Ben, scout the area. Ms. Park stays behind with the students. While waiting, the class troublemaker Rak and his friend sneak away unnoticed to a nearby supermarket to grab food. When they enter, they find it completely empty. No workers, no customers. Delighted, they start eating and drinking whatever they want. Not long after, Ms. Park realizes Rock and his friend are missing. Worried, she takes Yu, the class president, and goes searching for them. As they walk around, Yu spots a gun lying on the ground and recognizes it. It belongs to one of their classmates. She goes to pick it up but freezes in terror when she sees a severed hand still gripping the weapon. Yu screams in horror. Everyone hears it and rushes toward her. When they arrive, they too are horrified by the sight of the hand and the blood. Panic spreads. Ms. Park tries to calm them down until Chul suddenly bursts in and shouts that they're in danger. He confesses everything, telling them the truth about the alien creatures and how Han was killed by one of them. At first, no one believes him, until he points to Gal, who was there that night, as a witness. Gal confirms everything, and the class is thrown into chaos. The students start yelling at Chol and Gal, angry that they kept it secret all this time. Then Ms. Park notices a trail of blood on the ground and follows it, only to find herself and the students standing before a horrifying massacre site. The moment she sees the scene, Ms. Park collapses emotionally, screaming for the students to run. Suddenly, a large swarm of alien creatures appears, charging at them. Ms. Park grabs a rifle and fires furiously, taking down several of them, but one of the creatures sneaks up behind her, pounces, and kills her instantly. The students scream in terror as chaos erupts. A nearby soldier hears the commotion and runs to help, but he too is slain by one of the creatures. The students panic and scatter, desperately trying to escape while the aliens chase after them. Just in time, Lee and Ben arrive, guns blazing, fighting off the creatures and saving as many students as they can. Meanwhile, Rock and his friend are still inside the supermarket eating, unaware of the horror outside. Suddenly, they hear gunfire and realize something's wrong. They rush out to return to their friends, but the moment they step outside, they come face to face with an alien creature. At first, they're amazed. It looks oddly cute and harmless. They approach it out of curiosity, trying to see what it is, but the creature suddenly lunges, attacking them viciously. The two boys flee in panic, running for their lives. After a long chase, they manage to trap the creature inside a freezer and lock it shut. To their astonishment, the alien dies instantly once exposed to the cold. That's when they realize the weakness of these creatures. Low temperature, cold can kill them. During that time, Lieutenant Lee and Ben managed to gather all the surviving students after rescuing them from the alien attack. Lee speaks to them seriously, explaining that the creatures they saw are actually aliens emerging from the spherical objects floating in the sky. He tells them that these creatures feed on humans and have recently begun spreading across the entire world. Lee continues, saying that ever since the invasion began, the military has been fighting to stop them, but with little success. The aliens are too many and far too intelligent for humans to handle. That's why the Minister of Defense decided to recruit high school seniors and enlist them as part of the national defense effort. The students listen in horror, trembling, unable to process the reality of what they're hearing. Then, suddenly, they hear a strange sound nearby. Lee quickly orders everyone to ready their weapons. He picks up a helmet and throws it to the ground, creating a loud metallic noise. He explains that these creatures are attracted to sound. Everyone waits tensely for the alien to appear, but instead, Rak and his friend suddenly show up, revealing that the noise came from them. Relieved but frustrated, Lee gathers all the remaining students and leads them back to the school. As they walk, he's deeply saddened by their frightened faces and hollow eyes. He remembers the day when his commanding officer first ordered him to train these students. Back then, Lee had been reluctant. He believed they were too young, too innocent to face such danger. But bound by duty, he couldn't disobey a direct military order. Back in the present, the students return to class, traumatized by what they've witnessed. Silence fills the room until one girl stands up and speaks for everyone. She says that if going to university means risking her life, she doesn't want it anymore. She announces she's quitting military training and leaving school. One by one, the others agree. They decide to withdraw as well and return home, even though they know the consequences. If they leave, they'll never be allowed to continue their education. But there's a problem. The law states that if even one student disagrees with the decision to quit, none of them are allowed to leave. And unfortunately, one boy refuses to join them. Furious, Gal attacks him, beating him in anger to make him change his mind. The rest of the class rushes in to stop the fight, pulling Gal away, and a chaotic brawl breaks out among all of them. Eventually, Yu, the class president, comes up with an idea. She decides to write a letter to Lieutenant Lee, explaining that all the students want to leave except for one, and hoping he will allow them to go home anyway. Yu writes the letter, collects everyone's signatures except the lone student's, and goes to meet Lee in his office. She hands him the letter and pleads with him to let them go, but Lee shocks her with his answer. Even if they return home, they won't find their families there. The government has evacuated the entire country, moving all civilians to refugee zones for their safety. He continues, saying that all these aliens they've seen came from just one sphere, and warns her to imagine what would happen if all the other spheres in the sky fell and released more. He explains that sooner or later they'll have to face the creatures, whether they like it or not, and it's better to be trained and prepared than helpless. Lee tells her he can't let them leave for their own good. Yu returns to her classmates, devastated, and tells them everything. They're heartbroken and angry, but there's nothing they can do. That night, the students are forced to participate in military training once again. Lee pushes them harder than ever, shouting commands and demanding perfection. Some of the girls collapse from exhaustion, unable to continue, but Lee shows no mercy. He keeps pushing them, believing it's the only way to make them strong enough to survive. The students, however, see him as cruel and heartless, not realizing he's trying to protect them. After the grueling training, the students gather together, drained and miserable. None of them can take it anymore. They start whispering among themselves, trying to come up with a plan to escape. After long discussion, they form a desperate idea. They'll spread the truth about the aliens throughout the school. They'll tell everyone that Miss Park and several students were killed by the creatures, so panic spreads and chaos erupts. During the confusion, they'll use the opportunity to escape. The next day, they put their plan into action. Rumors about the aliens spread like wildfire, throwing the school into total panic. Students pour into the courtyard, demanding that the soldiers open the gates and let them leave. Lieutenant Lee rushes out, shouting at them to get back inside immediately and obey orders. But before anyone can react, something unexpected happens. A massive sphere suddenly crashes from the sky, landing right next to the school. Within seconds, hundreds of alien creatures burst out of it, attacking everyone in sight. Screams fill the air as chaos explodes. Students run in every direction while soldiers fight back, trying desperately to contain the assault. But then, a second sphere falls, and within minutes, the entire area is overrun with aliens. The soldiers are overwhelmed, killed one after another. The students flee into the school, locking the gates behind them, hiding inside classrooms, trembling in terror. The sounds of destruction echo outside. Moments later, Lieutenant Lee and Ben burst in. They're still alive. Lee yells for everyone to grab their weapons and supplies immediately. He warns them that if they don't escape now, they'll all die. The students quickly gather their things and follow Lee and Ben out the back door of the school. They rush to the military vehicles, trying to start one to flee. But just as they're climbing in, a group of aliens attacks, and one of the girls is killed right before their eyes. Horrified and panicking, they have no choice but to speed away in the trucks, escaping for their lives before the creatures wipe them all out. Unfortunately, each of the vehicles drives off in a different direction, scattering the group. Every driver tries to get as far away from the area as possible. We see Chul in one of the two vehicles, along with several of his classmates, including Rock. Sadly, their truck has only one soldier, the driver. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Lee and Ben are in the other vehicle with the remaining students. After a short while, without warning, Chul's vehicle overturns. It turns out an alien creature had somehow gotten inside with them. The alien attacks the driver and kills him instantly. Terrified, the students open fire, shooting at the creature until they finally manage to kill it, but they lose their only soldier in the process. To make matters worse, one of the girls is seriously injured during the chaos. The students are terrified and disoriented, unsure what to do or where to go. Chul steps up and decides to be brave. He'll search the area for any safe place to hide instead of staying exposed on the road. He takes a few of the boys with him, leaving Rock behind with the injured girl and the rest of the group. After some time, Chul returns and tells them he found a house nearby. At first, Rock refuses to move, insisting they should stay on the road until help arrives, but the others convince him that staying in the open would only make them easy prey for the aliens. Reluctantly, Rock agrees to go with them. He doesn't want to be left alone anyway. Before leaving, one of the boys marks an arrow on the overturned truck, hoping rescuers can follow the sign to find them later. At the same time, Lee and Ben arrive at a nearby shelter with the students who were with them. They expect to find the other truck already there. After all, that group had left earlier and should have arrived first. But to their shock, the second vehicle never arrived, and there's no word from them. Fear spreads among the students as they realize something must have happened to their missing friends. Yu, the class president, approaches Lee and pleads with him to go look for them. Lee is just as worried, but he can't promise anything. The decision isn't his to make. He goes to speak with the senior commanding officer at the shelter, requesting permission to go search for his missing students. The commander, whose rank is higher, refuses outright. He tells Lee it's impossible to risk soldiers, weapons, and ammunition just to search for a few students, especially during wartime when every bullet counts. The commander coldly adds that the missing students are probably dead already and orders Lee to drop the idea. Frustrated and heartbroken, Lee leaves and goes to Ben, his trusted assistant, and tells him everything. Lee confides that he's going to disobey orders and search for the missing students on his own, and he needs Ben's help. Without hesitation, Ben agrees, saying he'll do whatever Lee asks, even though disobeying a direct order is a military crime punishable by death. He doesn't care, he just wants to help. Lee asks Ben to get him the keys to one of the army trucks so he can leave the base. Ben approaches one of the drivers, striking up a conversation to distract him, and quietly steals a set of keys without being noticed. He returns to Lee and hands them over, insisting on going along, but Lee refuses. Lee tells Ben that he's the only one he fully trusts, and that he must stay behind to protect the students at the shelter. The two exchange a brief, silent farewell before Lee takes the keys and heads to the vehicle. But just as he's about to leave, Kim appears. He's been spying on them and overheard everything. Realizing what's happening, Kim runs back to the others and tells them that Lee is sneaking out to rescue their missing friends. The students immediately decide to go with him. They grab their weapons, quietly sneak out, and hide in the back of Lee's truck before he leaves. After driving for a while, Lee hears strange noises coming from the back of the vehicle. Suspicious, he stops and checks, only to find Yu, Kim, and the others hiding inside. Furious, he yells at them and orders them to go back to the shelter, but they refuse. They tell him they won't return without their friends, and even threaten to report him if he forces them back. Realizing he has no choice, Lee reluctantly lets them stay and decides to rely on them. Meanwhile, Chul and his group arrive at the house they found. They enter cautiously and start searching for anything useful. They find a box of medical supplies, treat their injured classmate as best they can, and clean and bandage her wound, hoping she'll recover. While exploring, one of the girls finds a small bag of food in the kitchen. Instead of sharing it, she hides it from the others and sneaks outside to eat alone. She sits behind the house, devouring the food greedily, until suddenly an alien creature appears from the darkness and attacks her. She screams and runs back toward the house. The others pull her inside and lock the doors, but the creature already knows their location. It starts tearing through the walls and vents to get in. It finally manages to enter through an air duct, forcing the students to scatter. Each group hides in separate rooms, locking themselves in and holding their breath in terror. They stay trapped in silence, helpless and afraid. Later that night, the boys realize that their injured classmate's condition is worsening. If she doesn't get medical help soon, she'll die. Desperate, Chul decides to sneak out and find a way to escape. He moves quietly through the dark until he reaches a storage shed near the house. Inside, he discovers a truck they could use to flee. But just as he's about to check it, an alien creature appears and attacks him viciously. Chul barely manages to escape and runs back to his friends, panting and terrified. He tells them about the vehicle he found, their only chance to survive. They start coming up with a plan to reach the storage shed and escape using the truck. The plan is simple but risky. They'll turn on the TV at full volume to lure the aliens' attention while they sneak out of the house, get to the shed, grab the truck, and drive away as fast as they can. They put the plan into action, turning the TV volume all the way up, and begin sneaking quietly out of the house. But the creature is smarter than they thought. It doesn't fall for the trick and quickly realizes where they are. It bursts out and starts chasing them. The group sprints toward the storage shed, rushing inside and locking the door behind them. Inside, they frantically search for the truck keys, turning the place upside down until they finally find them. Everyone climbs into the truck, and Rock takes the key, insisting on driving. But the others know he doesn't know how to drive. One of the girls offers to take over, reaching for the key, but Rock refuses to hand it over. They struggle over it until the key slips from their hands and falls behind heavy equipment in the corner. They try to move the machinery to get it back, but it's too heavy. Meanwhile, the alien begins tearing a hole through the roof trying to break in. One of the students realizes they're all going to die if the creature gets inside and says someone needs to sacrifice themselves, go outside and distract it so the others can retrieve the key and escape. Everyone hesitates, but finally, they agree and decide to draw lots to see who will do it. Tragically, the lot falls on Rock. He freezes in shock, too terrified to move. Seeing this, one of his friends volunteers to take his place. The brave boy says goodbye to his classmates, steps outside, and starts making loud noises to draw the alien away. The plan works. The creature spots him and chases after him, running far from the shed. The others seize the moment, recover the key, jump into the truck, and speed away, escaping the area. But as they drive, they realize Rock is missing. He's not in the truck. Meanwhile, the boy who volunteered to take Rock's place is still hiding near the house. He's trying to move quietly, hoping to slip away without making a sound. Suddenly, the alien reappears and lunges at him. Just as it's about to kill him, Rock shows up, wielding a fire extinguisher. He sprays the creature, the cold temperature freezing it instantly, killing it. Rock rescues his friend in the nick of time. The two breathe heavily, thinking they've finally survived, until another alien appears out of nowhere. It's about to kill them too, but suddenly, Lieutenant Lee, Ben, and the other students arrive and shoot the creature down, saving them. It turns out Lee's group met the others on the road, learned what happened, and rushed back to rescue Rock and his friend. Everyone reunites safely, hugging and crying with relief. The next day, Lee leads all his students back to the military shelter, where Ben welcomes them joyfully, almost in tears. He's overjoyed that everyone made it back alive. Soon after, the military commander summons Lee for disobeying orders. Technically, the commander has the right to court-martial him immediately for what he did, but luckily, because they're at war and Lee's skills are too valuable, the commander decides to forgive him this time. Still, he warns Lee that if he ever disobeys orders again, he'll be executed on the spot. Later, the students are finally allowed to rest after everything they've been through. The next morning, they're issued official military uniforms and resume training, this time as real soldiers. The commander gathers them all and tells them that from this moment, they are officially part of his battalion. He continues, announcing that their first official mission will begin the next day, and orders Lee to brief them. Lee explains that their mission is to go into residential zones and eliminate the alien creatures hiding there. The students are stunned. They know this mission is extremely dangerous, and most of them won't make it back alive. But it's a direct military order. None of them can refuse. Throughout the day, fear grips everyone. No one eats, no one speaks. Lee is worried too, but there's nothing he can do. Another issue weighs heavily on his mind. By Army tradition, each soldier must write a will before deployment in case they die in battle. But how could he hand out wills to teenagers? It would break them completely. As he debates what to do, Yu, who's been standing outside his office, sees him leave and sneaks in to take the will papers. She shows them to the other students, and everyone freezes. No one can bring themselves to write anything. The fear is too much. Moments later, Lee discovers the missing documents and storms in. Seeing their terrified faces, he immediately realizes what happened. He decides to calm them down. Lee tells them to follow him to the kitchen, where he and Ben start cooking a big meal for everyone, knowing they hadn't eaten all day. They joke around, playfully present the food, and share laughs together. For a while, the gloomy atmosphere fades. Lee and Ben bond with the students, treating them like younger siblings, not soldiers. Everyone eats happily, forgetting the fear and trauma, just for a night. The next morning, the team prepares for their mission. Lee briefs them carefully, assigning each person a specific role and handing out detection devices that emit a warning sound when alien creatures are nearby. Once they're ready, they load into their trucks and drive toward the residential area they've been ordered to clear. It doesn't take long before they arrive, moving cautiously through the empty streets until their scanners suddenly start beeping, signaling that aliens are close. They immediately take their combat positions, and Lieutenant Lee activates a sound device that emits a loud, high-frequency noise to draw all the alien creatures into one area. As soon as the aliens gather, Lee gives the command to open fire, and the team begins shooting them down one by one. Within a short time, they manage to eliminate most of the aliens in the streets. They continue their mission, moving carefully from house to house, finishing off any remaining creatures hiding inside. Everything seems to be going well. During their sweep, they even find 3 surviving soldiers from the previous battalion. They rescue them immediately and bring them along. However, the team notices something strange about one of the rescued soldiers, a young woman. Her behavior is off. She looks disturbed and mentally unstable. Even so, Lee refuses to abandon her in that condition. He decides to take all 3 of them with the squad. Lee selects a large building for the group to rest in overnight. Since they're scheduled to resume the cleansing mission the next morning, they secure the place thoroughly, checking every corner to ensure no creatures are around, then settle in for the night. Lee sits down with the rescued soldiers to learn exactly what happened to them. To his shock, he discovers that these survivors are actually high school students just like his own team. They explain that they had been sent on a rescue mission with their commander when a massive swarm of aliens ambushed them. Their commander panicked and abandoned them, fleeing for his life. The creatures slaughtered the rest of their unit one by one. In the end, only these 3 young soldiers survived. 2 of them deeply traumatized but still somewhat functional, while the third, the girl, is completely broken from what she witnessed. Lee instructs his students to take care of the survivors, stay close to them, and help them recover. Yet his own students begin to feel uneasy, terrified that their fate might mirror that of the fallen battalion. Still, they try their best to stay strong and live up to their responsibility. That night, the group gathers for dinner, all except the unstable female soldier who refuses to eat and suddenly leaves the room. Yu notices and becomes worried, following her quietly. To her horror, she sees the girl loading a gun, preparing to end her own life. Yu panics and tries to talk her down, begging her to lower the weapon. At that moment, Lee enters and sees what's happening. He starts speaking calmly to the girl, assuring her that she's safe now, that he'll protect her, take her back to a secure shelter, and that everything will be all right. He asks her to trust him and put the gun down. But the soldier has completely lost her mind. She raises the gun at Lee, mistaking him for her former commander, the one who abandoned her squad. Through tears, she screams that she and her comrades trusted him, that he was supposed to protect them, but instead he ran away and left them to die. In her rage, she decides to take revenge and pulls the trigger. At the very last second, Ben leaps in front of Lee, taking the bullet himself. The sound of gunfire echoes through the building. The students rush to the scene and find Ben lying on the ground, bleeding, while the girl sits in shock, muttering to herself. Chol carefully approaches her, removes the gun from her hands, and steps back. They can't do anything to her now. She's completely broken. The team focuses on saving Ben's life. Luckily, the bullet only hit his shoulder and he survives. After treating him, they let him rest while the others finally lie down, exhausted from the long, brutal day. Lee refuses to sleep. He stays beside Ben, watching over him. When Ben wakes up, he weakly tells Lee he's fine and urges him not to worry. Lee admits that if anything had happened to Ben, he would never have forgiven himself. He feels defeated, haunted by the thought that he's no longer able to protect his soldiers. He's terrified that continuing the mission will only lead to more deaths. The next morning, Lee gathers everyone and announces his decision. They're withdrawing and returning to their shelter. He tells them he'll take full responsibility for disobeying orders, even if it means execution. The students are shocked, knowing he's risking his life for them, but Lee doesn't care. Their safety matters more than his own. That night, no one can sleep. The students stay up talking, equally worried for Lee as he is for them. Meanwhile, Chol and Nara are on rooftop watch duty. Taking advantage of being alone together, Chol tries to confess his feelings to her, thinking this might be his only chance. After all, they could die at any moment. But before he can say anything, Nara spots strange movement nearby. She notices several aliens standing still, not attacking, but seemingly communicating with the glowing spheres in the sky. She quietly observes as the creatures continue this strange interaction, until suddenly all the aliens on the ground begin moving in the same direction. Alarmed, Nara rushes down to report to Lee and the others. They check the map and realize the aliens are heading toward a civilian shelter. Lee quickly concludes that the aliens must have located the shelter through their communication with the spheres and are now moving in to annihilate the survivors there. Everyone is horrified. Some students panic, unsure what to do. Lee insists that they stick to the plan and return to their own base to report the discovery and call for reinforcements. But others refuse. They argue that they can't abandon the civilians, especially since some of their own families might be among them. The emotional appeal convinces the rest. The entire group decides to stay and protect the shelter, even if it means dying. Lee is torn and afraid for them, but he can't stop them. They begin planning their final stand. Lee knows full well they can't face all the aliens head-on. Their numbers are overwhelming, so he devises a desperate strategy. They'll lure all the aliens into the university building and blow it up, destroying them all at once. The next day, Lee divides the team into separate groups, assigning each one a specific task. One group plants explosives inside the building, another prepares the university alarm system to emit a deafening sound to draw the aliens in, while a third group monitors their movements. Everything proceeds smoothly. The plan is working perfectly. But then, Chul and Nara, who are on surveillance duty, spot a terrifying development. All the aliens have gathered and are charging toward the shelter at high speed. They immediately alert Lee. Realizing that if they don't activate the alarm right now, the plan will fail, Lee gives the urgent order to trigger the alarm at maximum volume. The students are stunned. Many of them are still inside the building, planting the bombs. Without hesitation, Lee rushes toward the site, shouting for everyone to get out immediately. Lee tells his team he'll plant the remaining bombs himself and then follow them out. Ben insists on staying with him, but Lee refuses, ordering him to take the students and get them to safety. Ben hesitates, but eventually obeys. He gathers all the students and leads them out of the building. At that same moment, the ringing alarm begins to echo across the city, and waves of alien creatures start rushing toward the university from every direction. Lee stays behind, racing against time as he plants and secures the last of the explosives. Once finished, he hurries toward the exit, but as he's leaving, the aliens swarm into the building, surrounding him completely. Lee tries to find another way out, but in his escape attempt, he's forced to jump from a high ledge, injuring his leg badly. He can no longer run. Limping, he rushes into a nearby room and locks the door, realizing he's trapped. He looks toward the window, thinking to jump, but it's far too high, and he'd die instantly if he did. Out of options, Lee grabs his radio and contacts Ben, ordering him to detonate the bombs. Ben asks desperately if Lee is still inside. Lee lies and says he's already out, but outside, Ben and the students look around and see no sign of him. They realize he's lying. Ben makes the decision to go back for him, and the students insist on following. Lee yells over the radio, begging them not to, telling them he's trapped, surrounded, and there's no way out. If they come back, they'll die too. He tells Ben that he must take responsibility and blow the building, or the entire battalion will perish. The students break down crying, pleading with him to find another way. But Lee's voice is calm. He tells them it's impossible, apologizes for not being there till the end, and thanks them for everything. He says they are the bravest soldiers he's ever served with. As his final words, Lee bids them goodbye and asks Ben to honor his last request, to press the button. Ben, overwhelmed with grief, can't bring himself to do it. He collapses in tears, shaking. Then Yu, with trembling hands, steps forward and presses the detonator herself. The building explodes before their eyes, flames and debris lighting up the sky. Lee dies a hero, sacrificing himself to save his students. A month later, we see the surviving students continuing their mission, clearing a residential zone of aliens. Their skills have greatly improved. They move with precision, courage, and discipline. Once the area is secure, they head back to the shelter they now call home. Through narration, we learn what happened afterward. Following Lee's death, Ben disappeared mysteriously, and no one knows what became of him. With Lee gone and Ben missing, all communication with the army was lost. The students had no choice but to fend for themselves, building a small safe house to survive. Day by day, they scavenged for supplies and equipment, clearing nearby zones of aliens while adapting to their harsh new reality. They kept going, hoping that one day the nightmare would end and life would return to normal. Yu became the leader, with Yang as her second in command. Together, they dedicated themselves to protecting their friends and keeping everyone alive. At night, all the students would gather around, discussing their next move. But they were divided. Some wanted to return to the capital and join any remaining military shelters there, while others refused, afraid of the army, and convinced the capital had already fallen to the alien invasion. The last reports they'd heard said the city was completely overrun. Those students believed it was safer to stay in their current shelter. To settle the debate, Yu called for a vote. After counting the results, she announced that the majority wanted to stay, so they would remain in the shelter. She explained that this wasn't the first vote they'd held. Nearly every day they revisited the same argument, and every time the majority chose to stay. The next morning, Yu and Yang organized the group into 3 teams, assigning specific duties. Team 1 would go out to search nearby areas for food, water, and medicine. Team 2 would head to the police station to look for weapons, ammunition, or a working radio, since their old one had stopped functioning, leaving them completely isolated from the outside world. Team 3 would remain at the shelter, guarding it and maintaining defenses. Once the teams were briefed, they set out on their missions. Yu herself joined the team heading to the police station, accompanied by Yang. Chol and Nara joined the supply team, while their friend Kim stayed behind with the defense group. After some time, Yu's team arrives at the police station and begins searching for anything useful, but suddenly they hear a loud banging sound echoing through the building. Thinking aliens might be nearby, they check their detectors but find no signals. Confused, they decide to follow the noise, tracing it down to the underground level of the station. There they discover prison cells, and the sound they heard is coming from prisoners locked inside. The moment the prisoners see the students, they beg for help, pleading with them to open the gates. They say they've been trapped for days without food or water, their voices desperate and weak. The students begin arguing among themselves, debating whether they should open the prisoners' cells or not. Most of them feel sympathy and want to set the prisoners free, but Yu strongly opposes the idea. She insists that no matter what, those people are still criminals, and trusting them could be dangerous. Instead, Yu decides they should give the prisoners food through the cell bars so they can help them a little without risking anyone's safety. The others agree with her plan and return to distribute food through the locked doors. Once they finish, they prepare to leave the police station, but one of the girls feels guilty about leaving the prisoners trapped. Quietly, she sneaks back alone and unlocks one of the cells, thinking the man inside will be grateful for her kindness. But the moment she opens the gate, the prisoner grabs her and takes her hostage, then frees the other inmates. It turns out Yu was right. These prisoners are murderers and rapists. They surround the terrified girl, trying to attack her as she screams for help. Her friends hear her cries and rush downstairs. To their horror, they find that all the prisoners have escaped. The students quickly lock the main door, trapping the criminals inside the basement. The prisoners realize one of the students is still with them and threaten to kill her if the others don't open the door and hand over their weapons. The group retreats to discuss what to do. As they argue, Yang's detector starts beeping, warning that alien creatures are approaching. Yang comes up with a plan. They'll open the basement and let the aliens in, leaving the prisoners to face them. It's a cruel but practical solution. The others reluctantly agree. They go back down, unlock the gate, and hand the prisoners their weapons, but only after removing all the ammunition. Then they quickly run upstairs, hide, and wait. Moments later, the aliens storm the building and descend into the basement. The prisoners barely have time to react before the creatures tear them apart one by one. Amid the chaos, the kidnapped girl takes advantage of the distraction, slipping away to hide until the massacre ends. When the noise finally stops, the students go back down. Every prisoner is dead. They recover their weapons, check on their traumatized classmate, thankfully still alive, and then leave the police station together. Meanwhile, Chol and Nara's group arrives at a nearby hospital. They start searching for anything useful and find a large stockpile of medical supplies, as well as a military truck parked outside loaded with guns and ammunition. Overjoyed with their success, they gather everything they can. Everything seems perfect, until suddenly, something falls from the upper floors of the hospital with a loud crash. The group rushes to see what happened and is horrified to find that it's one of their own teammates, lying lifeless on the ground. They freeze in shock, assuming an alien must have attacked him. But when they approach the body, they find no wounds at all, meaning he either took his own life or was pushed. The shock deepens. Searching his pockets, they find papers from the daily voting sessions they hold at the shelter. That discovery reveals a horrifying truth. Someone has been rigging the votes, and this student was involved. They decide to investigate, but first, they bury their fallen comrade. Then they return to the shelter, grief heavy in their hearts. Yu's group, which had returned earlier, meets them at the entrance. Everyone is devastated by the loss. After the burial, they all gather together to talk. Chul, Nara, and their team reveal what they found, the evidence of vote tampering. They explain that the votes were always altered so that the majority appeared to choose staying in the shelter, even though the real results favored returning to the capital. The revelation shocks everyone. Distrust spreads instantly. The students begin accusing each other of betrayal, shouting and arguing until tempers boil over. Finally, Yu steps forward and admits the truth. She confesses that she overheard a message on their radio transmitter before it broke, news that the government had abandoned them completely. The education system was canceled indefinitely. The point system that was supposed to get them into universities had been a lie all along, created only to trick students into joining the army. Everything they'd done, every battle, every sacrifice, had been for nothing. When Yu learned the truth, she decided to keep it secret, afraid the others would lose all hope. She and 3 classmates, Yang, Gal, and the recently deceased student, agreed to hide it from everyone else. They even sabotaged the radio so no one could hear the government's broadcast. Then they rigged the votes to prevent anyone from returning to the capital, believing there was no point since the war had destroyed everything, including the universities. As Yu, Yang, and Gal confess, they apologize through tears, saying they did it to protect everyone from despair, but the damage is done. The rest of the students stand in silence, devastated and heartbroken. Their faith is shattered. Not only had they been lied to by their government, but now they realize even their friends deceived them. They've lost everything, their families, their future, and even their last hope of education. There's no reason left to stay. So they decide to leave the shelter and return to the capital the next day, even if it means facing certain death. Among them is a boy named Juk, known for being obsessed with studying. Coming from an extremely poor family, he believed education was the only way to save them from poverty. Joining the army had been his only chance to earn college admission and change their lives. When he hears that the government canceled all schooling and that universities no longer exist, he completely loses control. He breaks down screaming, ripping apart his books in madness, crying that he's failed his family and that everything he lived for was meaningless. The next morning, the students pack what little they have and begin their journey toward the capital. Yu, Yang, and Gal go with them, though everyone avoids them. No one speaks to them, and the tension is heavy. They walk for miles in silence. Then, suddenly, Juk snaps again. His face twists with hysteria as he shouts that they must kill as many aliens as possible, believing maybe then the government will reward them and let them into college. But no one responds. The others keep walking quietly, their faces empty, too numb to hope, too broken to care. They all saw Juk as nothing more than a disturbed, study-obsessed lunatic, so they ignored him and walked away. His mental state continued to deteriorate rapidly, while the rest of the students pressed on toward the capital. As night fell, they decided to camp inside an abandoned amusement park, planning to rest there and continue their journey in the morning. Everyone gathered to have dinner together, except for Yu, Yang, and Gal, who sat apart from the others, still shunned by the group. Kim, wanting to restore unity, spoke up and defended them. He told the others that Yu and the rest only hid the truth because they were trying to protect everyone, and that if Captain Lee were still alive, he would have done the same. They weren't traitors. They were friends who acted out of care. The students began to see reason, and one of the girls went over to Yu, inviting her and the others to join them again. Yu was overwhelmed with relief. She, Yang, and Gal returned to the group, and slowly the tension dissolved. They began laughing, joking, and talking like old times. For a moment, it felt as if everything was back to normal, as if the horrors they'd faced had never happened. One of the girls ran over to the amusement park's power controls, managed to turn the electricity back on, and soon the entire park lit up. The students, overjoyed, started playing on the rides, screaming and laughing through the night like carefree kids again. Only Juk didn't join them. He sat alone in a dark corner, muttering to himself, completely detached from reality. His condition worsened until he began hallucinating, seeing visions of his family and talking to them, though no one noticed his breakdown. Meanwhile, the rest of the group continued playing and, later, gathered to take a group photo. Chul picked up a camera to take the picture, but as he turned it on, he discovered a video file recorded by the student who had fallen to his death earlier at the hospital. They played it and saw their friend speaking directly to the camera. In tears, he confessed everything, apologizing for his lies and begging them to forgive him. But before he could finish, aliens appeared behind him in the recording, attacking him. He tried to flee but tripped, falling from the window to his death. The students were heartbroken, but the video also brought them peace. At least now they knew how he died and that no one among them had killed him. While they were processing that, Juk wandered aimlessly through the park and stumbled upon an old newspaper. The headline read, "Government Reinstates University Entrance Exams." His eyes filled with joy. Believing the news was current, he ran to show it to one of the girls. But when she saw the paper, she laughed bitterly and told him it was years old. Then she walked away. That moment shattered him. In a fit of rage, Juk grabbed her hand tightly, shouting that she was lying, that she didn't want him to enter college. Terrified, she struggled to pull away, but during the scuffle she fell, hitting her head hard and losing consciousness. Instead of helping her, Juk snapped completely. He stared at her limp body, his mind gone, and began to try to assault her. But just then, Gal happened to pass by and saw what was happening. Gal rushed in, punched Juk, and pulled the girl away, checking to make sure she was still alive. Enraged, Juk grabbed a rock from behind and smashed it against Gal's head, then picked up his gun and shot him repeatedly, killing him in cold blood. The gunshots echoed across the park, and the others came running. Thinking quickly, Juk dragged Gal's body to the nearby pier and threw it into the water. When the group arrived, he put on an act, pretending to be horrified. He told them an alien suddenly appeared, attacked Gal, and dragged his body into the sea. Panicked, the others believed him. They didn't question his story. They revived the unconscious girl, grabbed their weapons, and fled the area. As they traveled down the road, grief weighed heavily on everyone except Juk, who felt nothing but relief. He'd gotten away with it. To his advantage, when the girl finally woke up, she had no memory of what happened. She'd lost her memory completely, leaving no witness to his crime. After some time, the group found an abandoned school and decided to rest there for the night. They all gathered in one classroom, too shaken and exhausted to sleep after the long, miserable day. Juk sat alone in a corner, staring blankly. Then his hallucinations returned, louder and clearer than ever. He began hearing voices, seeing horrifying visions, and completely lost his sanity. Gripping his weapon, Juk stormed into the classroom where his classmates rested and opened fire. Bullets tore through the room as he murdered them one by one. Screams filled the air as the surviving students tried to escape, but Juk chased them down, shooting them mercilessly. In the end, only one girl remained alive, badly wounded. With her last strength, she picked up a fallen gun and shot Juk, killing him instantly. Tragically, almost everyone died, slain by the hands of their deranged classmate. Only Chul survived, because during the shooting, Kim had thrown himself in front of him, taking the bullets and saving his life. Chul stood among the dead, trembling, watching his friends' lifeless bodies, unable to hold back his tears. 2 years passed. The government finally developed a weapon strong enough to destroy the aliens, and humanity slowly began to rebuild. The world returned to normal, as if nothing had ever happened. Schools reopened, entrance exams resumed, and life went on. We see Chul sitting in a university exam room, staring blankly at the test in front of him. Memories flood back, how he and his friends once dreamed of this moment. If things hadn't gone wrong, they'd all be taking this exam together. Chul quietly stands up, walks out of the hall, and decides not to finish the test. He realizes that no amount of academic success can ever matter now, not when his friends are gone. He walks away, determined to start a new life, far from the place where everything was destroyed. And with that, Season 1 and 2 of the series come to an end. If you enjoyed the series, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel Flash Recaps. See you in the next summary. Goodbye.